So I finished the invitation yesterday. Or the day before, I don't remember. Everything's gone so fast. What if the question is not why am I so infrequently the person I really want to be, but why do I so infrequently want to be the person that I really am? That ends. You have a true higher self, and this book tells you how to come from there all the time and be authentic and make a lasting difference. What would you do if you knew you were enough? Just as you are today. If you knew, really knew, that you are in your essential nature, a compassionate, gentle being capable of being fully present with yourself and the world, would you trust yourself more? Welcome to the dance. The wise and practical book that expands on Oriah Mountain Dreamer's new moving prose poem, and the compelling book acclaimed under the author of The Invitation challenges readers to live with passion, energy, and honesty. The key, says Oriah, is to savor the everyday world of family, friends, love, and work with clear minds and open hearts. When we are physically and emotionally stressed, our spirits are depleted. We must realize that happiness has not vanished, but is buried beneath the clutter of our harried lives. With rare courage and honesty, Oriah unveils the challenge of her inspiring fully the person that we already are, not ways to change. I'm going to teach them how to dance. Moving to the rhythms of your true self. There are lovers content with longing. I'm not one of them. What if it truly doesn't matter what you do, but how you do whatever you do? How would this change what you choose to do with your life? What if you could be more present and open-hearted with each person you met? If you were working as a cashier in a corner store or as a parking lot attendant, then you could if you were doing a job you think is more important. How would this change how you want to spend your precious time on this earth? What if your contribution to the world and the fulfillment of your own happiness is not dependent on discovering a better method of prayer or attending the right seminar, but upon really seeing and deeply appreciating yourself and the world as they are right now? How would this affect your search for spiritual development? What if there is no need to change, no need to try to transform yourself into someone who is more compassionate, more present, more loving, or wise? How would this affect all the places in your life where you are endlessly trying to be better? What if the task is simply to unfold, to become who you already are in your essential nature? Gentle, compassionate, and capable of living fully and passionately present. How would this affect how you feel when you wake up in the morning? What if who you essentially are right now is all that you're ever going to be? How would this affect how you feel about your future? What if the essence of who you are and always have been is enough? How would this affect how you see and feel about your past? What if the question is not, why am I so infrequently the person I really want to be? But why do I so infrequently want to be the person that I really am? How would this change what you think you have to learn? What if becoming who and what we truly are happens not through striving and trying, but by recognizing and receiving the people and places and practices that offer us the warmth of encouragement we need to unfold? How would this shape the choices you make about how to spend the day? What if you knew the impulse to move in a way that creates beauty in the world will arise from deep within and guide you every time you simply pay attention and wait? How would this shape your stillness, your movement, your willingness to follow this impulse to just let go and dance? The dance. I've sent you my invitation, the note inscribed on the palm of my hand by the fire of living. Don't jump up and shout, "Yes, this is what I want, let's do it." Just stand up quietly and dance with me. Show me how you follow your deepest desires, spiraling down into the ache within the ache. And I will show you how I reach inward and open outward to feel the kiss of the mystery, sweet lips on my own every day. Don't tell me you want to hold the whole world in your heart. Show me how you turn away from making another wrong without abandoning yourself when you're hurt and afraid of being unloved. Tell me a story of who you are and see who I am in the stories I'm living. And together we'll remember that each of us always has a choice. Don't tell me how wonderful things will be someday. Show me you can risk being completely at peace. Truly okay with the way things are right now in this moment. And again in the next. In the next. In the next. Your stories of heroic daring. Tell me how you crumble when you hit the wall. The place you cannot go beyond by the strength of your own will. What carries you to the other side of that wall? To the fragile beauty of your own humanness. And after we have each shown each other how we have set and kept clear, healthy boundaries, and after we have shown each other how we have set and kept the clear, healthy boundaries that help us live side by side with each other, let us risk remembering that we never stopped silently loving those we once loved out loud. Take me to the places on the earth that teach you how to dance. The places where you can risk letting the world break your heart. And I will take you to the places where the earth beneath my feet and the stars overhead make my heart whole again and again. Show me how you take care of business without letting business determine who you are. When the children are fed, but still the voices within around us show that soul's desire to have too high a price. remind each other that it is never about the money. It's the moment. Show me how you offer to your people and the world the stories and songs you want our children's children to remember. And I will show you how I struggle not to change the world, but to love it. Sit beside me in long moments of shared solitude, knowing both our absolute aloneness and our undeniable belonging. Dance with me in silence and in the sound of small daily words, holding neither against me at the end of the day. And when the sound of all the declarations of our sincerest intentions has died away in the wind, dance with me in the infinite pause before the next great inhale of breath that is breathing us all into being, not feeling the emptiness from the outside or from within. Don't say yes. Just take my hand and dance with me. But can you dance? I've sent you my invitation. The note inscribed on the palm of my hand by the fire of living. Don't jump up and shout, yes, this is what I want. Let's do it. Just stand up and quietly dance with me. The advantage of the written word is that I can tell you here near the beginning what was only revealed to me near the end. I write these words to name myself, to name each of us worthy of going home, worthy of having our longing met, worthy of awakening in the arms of the beloved. Finding and voicing our soul's longing is not enough. Our ability to live in a way that is consistent with our longing, our ability to dance, is dependent on what we believe we must do. If our intention is to change who we essentially are, we will fail. If our intention is to become who we essentially are, we cannot help but live true to the deepest longings of our soul. It is a shining autumn day, the kind of day when the blue of the sky startles you into believing that all things are possible. I'm standing in the quad, a tree-filled green space between the old stone buildings of St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto. But I'm not aware of the warm sun or the cool breeze or the students laughing and talking and being vibrantly 20 years old on the lawn. All I can hear is my 44-year-old heart thundering in my ears, pounding so hard and fast that my body quakes with reverberations. Each time I take a step, sweat trickles down the sides of my ribcage beneath my wool sweater. Long, thin pains radiate out from my chest and down both arms like shards of glass making their way along my arteries. A giant hand is tearing my heart out of my chest, and I'm afraid. It probably tells you more than I want you to know about me, that it never crosses my mind to ask any of those passing by for help. Stoic to what I am, suddenly afraid might be the end, I think to myself, Oriah, this would be a very stupid place to die. Later, I wonder what a smart place to die would look like. But for the moment, I focus on moving forward, convinced that I'll be all right if I can make it to the library just across the quad and lie down in one of the large armchairs in the reading room. And then suddenly, there on the sidewalk, beneath the sun of an impossible ordinary afternoon, I hear part of the Pablo Neruda poems keeping quiet, running through my head like the lyrics to some sad melody being played in my body. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. I'm aware of what feels like a sharp, desert dry stone in my throat, and I swallow it and focus on taking another step. It takes me 10 minutes to traverse the usual 2-minute walk to the library, lying in a lounge chair. I feel the pain slowly abate as my heartbeat gradually returns to normal. And the last line of Neruda's poem runs through my mind again and again. Why am I threatening myself with death? One doctor later declares, I have had a mild heart attack, while another maintains it was severe angina. Either way, the message is the same. Despite the articulation of my sincerest intention to slow down and rest, I continue to do too much, to run too fast, to try too hard. I continue to threaten myself with death. And this refusal to rest is not the only way in which I have been failing to live consistent with my deepest desire to be fully present with myself and others. Lying there in the library, reviewing the last few months of my life, I'm aware of the gap I fear is an abyss between my longing to live passionately and intimately with myself and others and the choices I continue to make, the ways in which I will fail to love myself or others well. I'd failed to see the signs of advanced alcoholism and severe depression in the man who had come into my life the previous spring. Although he functioned reasonably well during the day as an architect, I eventually learned that Paul kept a nightly ritual of consuming large volumes of scotch. It was a pain-numbing habit he'd developed 5 years earlier after his wife had died in a car crash, when he told me he'd fallen asleep at the wheel. Had I heard all of what Paul had told me from the beginning, that despite his desire to rebuild his life, he did not think he could ever love or be loved again. That he was winding down toward death. Would I still have loved him? I believe I would have. I'd seen the tender heart, fine mind and gentle spirit beneath the pain and addiction. But I had seen and accepted the choices he was making for his life, for death. I wouldn't have loved him as I do now from a distance, not hoping for a relationship of deep intimacy and partnership. When I walked away full of sadness for what could have been, I thought to myself, I should have told him from the beginning. It doesn't interest me if your answer to my invitation is yes. I want to know if you can dance. But the truth was that he had told me from the start that he couldn't. I just hadn't wanted to hear it. Counseling hundreds of women over the past 15 years, I have come to believe that most men tell the truth at the outset of a relationship, even when, or perhaps particularly when, the women they are speaking to are practicing selective listening, are not able or willing to be fully present with what is. But nowhere had I failed to be present in the way I wanted to be, as I had with my elder son, Brendan. Brendan's father and I discover in the spring that he has once again been lying to us about attending school. And when someone you love lies to you, it can break your heart to know that they do not trust that you will love them if the truth is told. Smart, caring, and confused Brendan is clearly unhappy, unable to decide what he wants to do and unwilling to take advice or seek guidance. Nothing too abnormal for a 19-year-old. And I, a completely normal mother of a confused 19-year-old, am torturing myself with images of him living in my basement and sleeping until noon at the age of 45. I'm alternatively furious with him and sick with the worry that he will not find a way into his own happiness. want to be patient and caring and supportive. More often, I am frantic, critical, and nagging. Our love for each other is never in doubt, but our ability to be in the same room together without conflict is. The arguments are frequent, heated, and increasingly nasty, wearing us both out and leaving me heartsick. I know I need to trust Brendan to make his own choices and take the consequences, but I am afraid for him. Riding and meditating alone at a wilderness retreat at the end of a long summer conflict, I resolved to do things differently. I'll be more patient. He's only 19. He has time to make choices. I will worry less. After all, he's not drinking or taking drugs. I'll be more supportive, silent about his mistakes, applauding his successes. Not naive. I know it will be difficult, but I have hope that the strength of my longing to love him well will guide me into being a better mother. I can honestly say there is nothing I want more in my life. Maybe this is what makes parenting so hard. It matters too much. My human mistakes, my errors in judgment, my lack of wisdom are hardest to accept here when I am deeply attached to the outcome. Full of heartfelt intentions to do better, I arrive home from my time alone to find Brendan waiting for me in the living room of our home. 2 weeks earlier, he had agreed that while I was away, he would see a counselor, consider his options, make some decisions to take some actions, getting admission information for schools, applying for jobs, talking to his father. And in 2 weeks after an entire summer of doing absolutely nothing, he has done none of it. No thinking, no deciding, no acting. And in 90 seconds, all the resolve I had to be calm and patient and supportive evaporates. I'm not exaggerating. 90 seconds is all it takes. You did nothing? My voice slides up an octave with all the ease of, if not the sweetness of an operatic soprano. Nothing. You promised. I let you take your time. What were you thinking would happen when I came back? I can't believe this. I questioned, pleaded, accused, then collapsed into silence, more devastated by my reaction than his continued inaction. All hope drained from my body and heart. I failed him. I failed myself. Admitting defeat and afraid of inflicting more damage, I did the only thing I could think of. I tell him to move out, to go to his father's. It is not a plan. It is not a strategy. It is a desperate attempt to shift things. If not for him, then at least between us. Grief splits me open, but I know we cannot continue as we are. Brendan moves to his father's that day. 2 days later, he applies for a job and starts working at the end of the week, flipping burgers at a local fast food place. As I write this 9 months later, he is still working, putting money aside, sorting out what he wants to do, but clearly happier than he was 9 months ago. He comes over frequently, but the new distance between us, albeit small as his father lives 8 doors away, is helping us learn a new way of being together. I catch myself before I tell him that he needs a shave. Should wear a warmer sweater or shouldn't be drinking caffeine. Well, at least half the time. The other half of the time, he generously ignores me. With my heart bruised by all 3 of these failures to live my desire to love myself and others well, it becomes painfully obvious to me that the intention to live consistent with soul-felt desires is not enough, even when those desires are deeply felt and clearly articulated. I want to know why I'm so infrequently the person I really want to be. So I start writing because writing is my way of searching, of opening to possible wisdom. I'm not interested in why I don't act on intentions that don't really matter to me. I know why I don't exercise, even though I repeatedly declare I will. I don't like exercise. I don't actually want to exercise. It's something I think I should do, not something I fully intend to do. But I do want to know why I repeatedly fail to live the intentions that matter to me. I want to know how to narrow the gap between the sincerest desires of my own soul and my daily actions. I believe that being willing to be with the truth about myself is a necessary first step in narrowing the gap between my intentions and my actions, and I'm right. I just can't imagine or anticipate what the truth is and what it will require of me. One night, after several months of writing, one of the elders who has appeared in my dreams for over 15 years, one of those I call the grandmothers, comes and speaks to me while I sleep. Wrong question, Oriah, she says. The question is not, why are you so infrequently the people you really want to be? The question is, why do you so infrequently want to be the people you really are? She pauses, because you have no faith that who you are is enough. Her voice is soft, full of sadness. But it is. Your true nature as human beings is compassionate, and this essential nature makes you capable of being intimately and fully present. Who you really are is enough. I wake up, flip on the light, and write in my journal. The question is not, why are we so infrequently the people we really want to be? The question is, why do we so infrequently want to be the people that we really are? Sitting in my bed in the pre-dawn light, I'm stunned into a strange stillness. A pen falls from my hand and the journal lies open on my lap. For perhaps the first and possibly the last time in my life I thought it was impossible. The silence around and within me grows like a palpable extending quiet that comes after the sound of a great bell has faded to nothing. Later I will question and doubt and complain that it would have been nice if this course correction had been offered sometime before I'd written 7 whole chapters. But there will never be any erasing the knowledge I have in the moment. The grandmother is telling me is true. That who we are by our essential nature is enough. That we are right now in this moment capable of being compassionate and fully present in intimate relationship with ourselves, the world, and the mystery. That we are all we need to be by our nature, that there is no need for self-improvement, that we live our deepest soul desires, not by intending to change who we are, but by intending to be who we are. And clearly our intention to change or be who we are profoundly shapes how we live, what we believe we must do to learn, whether we feel we must ceaselessly push ourselves to reach higher or simply find the courage and confidence to allow who we are to unfold. The latter view calls for choices that support and expand our essentially compassionate nature, while the former aims to reshape our essentially flawed nature with heroic efforts of endless trying. Despite the fact that endless trying isn't working, it's what I know. It's hard to believe that I can be enough as I am. I want to be more compassionate, more present, more conscious and aware, more loved and loving, more intimate with myself and the world. I want to know how to be different, better than I am. Even though I've failed to consistently live my deepest desires, I'm exhausted by the endless efforts to become who I think I will have to be to live these desires. I resist letting go of trying. I trust my ability to work hard. I have no experience with or faith in my ability to simply be. This lack of faith in who we are is embedded in the bones of the culture that we have created. We are surrounded by the assumption of our innate inadequacy. The notion of original sin made implicit in the and a secular culture preaching achievement, improvement, and change. The marketplace is flooded with books and tapes and speakers telling us how to change and transform ourselves into something other than what we are, implicitly telling us that who we really are is not enough, is at its best deeply flawed and weak, and at worst nasty and aggressive, in a word, sinful. Many of the New Age spiritual teachers talk a great deal about how our consciousness is evolving. Now, this may or may not be true, although I think you could argue that becoming more efficient producers of weapons of mass destruction and relying more and more exclusively on our rational thinking to the exclusion of or undervaluing of our emotions and intuition could be seen as evidence of some devolution. But even if you choose to believe that we are evolving, and it would be an amazingly arrogant species-centric assumption even for us to say that the process somehow stopped with the magnificence of Homo sapiens, anyone who has studied the process of evolution will tell you that this is a very, very slow and therefore unlikely to be of any real assistance to me in my quest to become a more patient and loving mother before my sons reach retirement. Calling upon evolution as the hoped-for salvation and making suggestions that seem to indicate that we can somehow make it happen faster if we try harder says that our very nature needs to be fundamentally transformed in order for us to be the people that we really want to be. Secular preachers put forth a similar idea in a different guise. I recently sat in on a presentation given to corporate coaches, folks who work with displaced CEOs and corporate executives. The presenter, a bright and entertaining motivational speaker, was not talking about increasing profits or acquiring more material possessions. In fact, he was questioning the usefulness of these goals in our lives and talking instead about living more fully every day, an intention that echoed my own. But as he urged his audience with real evangelical zeal, go the extra mile in living more fully to become better parents, better coaches, better executives, to get up an hour early to exercise, to get up 2 hours early to meditate and exercise, to take someone new to lunch every week. I could feel myself becoming exhausted in just listening to him. And as I looked at the quiet, tired faces of men and women in the audience, men and women already running on too little sleep and too much caffeine, I felt an insurmountable heaviness in my limbs. I could feel myself agreeing with him. Yes, these are all things I would have to do to be consistent with my intention and to live fully. And I knew right then and there that I was not going to make it, that I would never be good enough or disciplined enough to do all the things I would have to do to consistently live my own soul's longings or this man's aspirations. I simply didn't have within me the energy to make all the necessary incremental upgrades. Weary and discouraged, I was contemplating returning to the free breakfast buffet for another high-fat croissant. What the hell? I was never going to do half of what I should do anyway, so why not? When the speaker said something that woke me up, with absolute conviction, he said, "The harder you are on yourself, the easier life will be on you." Something inside me snapped awake. I knew this was wrong. He was offering a deal. If you drive yourself, life will reward you. In a flash, I knew that this was the place I would land over and over again, driving my body and heart to the point of exhaustion in the hopes of ever-elusive inner spiritual makeover. If I thought the central question was, why are we so infrequently the people we really want to be? And if success is at its best unlikely, the only hope is a deal. A magic formula that offers a promise and keeps us on the treadmill of self-improvement in the hopes that someone or something will see our effort and grant us a boon. Still, some days, my son might say weeks, searching for evidence that my essential nature is compassionate would be pretty slim pickings. Sometimes I'm a shit, really. I automatically judge as flaky people who use names like Ophelia Morning Glory, which is pretty cheeky for a woman who writes and speaks under the name Oriah Mountain Dreamer. I spend too much time picking at my sons for little things like not wrapping the cheese up tight enough so the edges won't get dark and hard and forgetting to feed the cat. I suspect them of deliberately leaving their oversized sneakers in the hallway where I'm sure to trip over them. I get angry at people who don't do things my way, like the young woman on the phone who sounds like she is 12 and will not let me send my courier shipment to collect my collect to my publisher, even though I've done it a dozen times before, because it has just dawned on her that the United States is a different country from Canada, and the company policy is that you cannot make collect international shipments. And believe me, I can get pretty nasty when someone who's just doing their job or having a bad day cannot see that my way is better. But when I think of those I love, in contrast to the way that I see myself, I have little difficulty thinking of others I know as being basically essentially good, even while I can see the aspects of them that are less endearing. Linda, who has been my best friend for 22 years, has a temper, and even though she was once a Catholic nun, or perhaps because of it, she can swear like a trooper when she is angry. Even though I don't actually believe in hell, I have upon occasion thought to myself, when hearing a string of epithets come from her mouth, that would make a sailor blush. We're all going to hell just for hearing that one. Lately, Linda has been going through some major changes in her life. If you met her at the moment, you might think she is basically a very angry woman. And if you told me this, I would tell you without hesitation that Linda is just very frightened right now. Linda's fear comes out as anger. Yeah, hashtag relatable. Okay. I do not have any problem keeping sight of the fact that Linda is not her anger. That Linda, in some essential and basic way, is gentle, compassionate woman truly capable of being fully present and loving with anyone on the planet. How do I know this? Because I have seen it. Now, of course, you could point out that I have also seen the impatience and anger. So why do I not feel the least bit confused about which is the essential Linda? I don't know. I just know that who she really is the good stuff. Love is what lets me see this in Linda and know that it is true. Clearly, this may be the perspective I am missing when examining myself. But if humans, by their essential nature, are basically compassionate and capable of being fully present, then why do we so often act out of anger or harshness or distraction? Again, when I look at someone I love, the answer to this question is not such a mystery: fear. Linda behaves in a way that is inconsistent with her basic compassionate nature when she is afraid. When fear comes between her and her knowledge of who and what she is, knowledge that would reassure her that she belongs in some fundamental way, that who she is made of this. Ugh. Stretch. Okay. Describe the factors that shape our fear and influence our behavior. Past trauma and conditioning, inherited tendencies and learned responses, past life karma and current pressures, human biology, psychology, and spirituality. We can develop some useful self-understanding by considering any or all of these, but I do not believe we can ever claim to have a definitive explanation for all of our behavior. We remain, like so much of the universe, something of a mystery to ourselves. Whatever the reasons for behavior that is inconsistent with the basic compassionate nature the grandmother claims we are, the useful question, if we want to live our soul's longing, is how can we expand the opportunities and increase the possibilities of living consistent with this nature? How can we dance? If I want to live my ability to be fully present and compassionate, my ability to be with it all, the joy and sorrow, I must find the ways, the people, the places, the practices that support me in being all I truly am. I must cultivate ways of being that let me feel the warmth of encouragement against my heart when it is weary. I must be fiercely and compassionately honest with myself about those choices and actions that are inconsistent with my deepest nature and soul's desires. I must find the song lines that run through my life, the melodies that remind me of what I really am and call me gently back on acting on this knowledge. I must learn how to dance. The dance is about finding ways to let our essential nature guide our choices and actions. It's about honestly looking at the times when it is hard for us to remember and be guided by who we really are. The times when we are tired and hurt, frightened and angry. It's about the places in this culture where it's easy to become confused about who we are when we're dealing with money and sex and death and power. Loudly declaring our soul's desires can get the blood running and our passions blazing. When I shared a prose poem I had written declaring my soul's longing with men and women who had done workshops and retreats with me, many responded with a sincere yes to the call they heard to live more fully present in their lives and in the world. I'd heard stories from men and women who told me that they had used the prose poem as a litmus test for choosing mates. One woman told me that on her third date with a new man in her life, she had read the piece aloud and waited to see his reaction. When he took her hands in his, looked into her eyes, and said enthusiastically, "I want you to know I say yes to all of it." She felt she knew this was the man for her. Another young woman introduced me to her fiancé, the man who had responded enthusiastically to the poem months before. After her boyfriend, wait, Another young woman introduced me to her fiancé, the man who had responded enthusiastically to the poem months before, after her boyfriend at the time had shrugged indifferently to the piece. I love hearing those stories. The heaven only knows I and others have gotten together with potential mates on flimsier evidence that mutual enthusiasm for writing we find meaningful. I will admit, I wonder if asking someone who is obviously interested in getting to know you in a biblical sense what they think of the poem you clearly feel is important is likely to elicit anything but a positive, enthusiastic response. But I'm not cynical about good intentions. Voicing our intentions is often blah, 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 blah. Voicing our intentions is often part of becoming clear about and making a commitment to action. Sometimes when these intentions are voiced in words that come from the deepest parts of ourselves in moments of clarity about what really matters, the words themselves have the power to open our hearts and imaginations to the possibility of truly living our longing. That's the power of poetry I love. The poetry of Rumi and Yeats and Neruda and Mary Oliver and Anne Dillard and Susan Griffin and many others. Worlds themselves can become acts of beauty that awaken and strengthen our commitment to living our soul's desires. But saying something we truly mean and being able to live it are two very different things. The older I get, the more I love words and trust actions. When I was young, I met a man. I wanted to know if he believed women were equal and entitled to the same choices as those afforded to men. Now I'm more interested in whether or not he'll cook some of the meals regularly and clean up after, including cleaning out the unidentifiable gunk that collects in the sink strainer without making a big deal about it. I'm less interested in people's articulated spiritual beliefs or political philosophies, and more interested in whether or not they're true to themselves even when it costs them something, whether or not they can be kind when it is easier to be indifferent, whether or not they can remember that to be human is to be flawed and spectacular and deeply compassionate. If we cannot hear music of our own sweet nature calling to us, if we cannot remember that the intention is to live who we really are, it's hard to know how to move, where to begin, and how to dance. That's why it's not always a good idea to start shouting enthusiastically about what we are going to do, how we are going to live our soul's longing. No matter how strongly this longing is felt in the moment, sometimes we just need to sing quietly together, hand in hand, until one of us hears the music and begins to dance. Thanks for coming.